Hey, this is Riff. I want to add some more context to this. It was important for me to roll out of bed and reply to this comment because it's very important that we clearly understand as managers what the difference between micromanagement and effective management. Micromanagement is telling people how to do things, and effective management is telling people what to accomplish. Now, in this particular context where you as a leader don't know the details, guess what? You're going to learn them as you go, right? In that. But it doesn't mean that you do not learn the details, right? It's important that you begin learning the process through SOPs, SOGs, or through process flows or through whatever those things are. You're going to get into some of the details here in a minute. But the first thing you have to do as a manager in this scenario, there are three things. The first thing is probably the most important thing in this scenario is you have to create what's called an activity list with frequency and reasonable expectations. That all it is your job list with the frequency and reasonable expectations. Now, the reasonable expectations is where you come in because that number is the number where you create your expectations. For example, if you've got one job that they do twice a week and it takes 60 minutes, the question then becomes, where did that 60 minutes come from? Was it an inherited number? Did someone guess at it? Was it an employee that made that number up? Was it your boss? If your boss says, yeah, that's the number, well, then you've got to push back and say, what's the math behind that number? I need to understand that. But even then, you've got to validate it through observations, right? Because here's the thing, is that once you begin knowing the details of the work, which is important, it's really important. Don't believe that it's not. Once you start realizing the details of the work, there's going to be true work and lost time. In the work itself that you're observing, there's only two components, true work and lost time. Once you figure out those two things, then you can reassess those 60 minutes and say, hey, it's really only 42 minutes because the other 13 minutes, people were just filling in the gap or they're being efficient or there was issues or problems or whatever those things are. And that's where you come in to say, hey team, it's not really 60 minutes, it's actually 42. We need to reassess that and reestablish that to be 42 minutes. And that's where you create your plan and create your expectations and create goals and KPIs around those things. So it's really important that you understand a certain level of detail so that you can set the right expectations, because if not, and the opposite is true, is that if you don't do this correctly, that's where micromanagement comes in, because if you don't know the details of it, that's where micromanagement comes in, because you want to be able to control things that you don't know nothing about. That's how it all starts, because macromanagers that want to micromanage, they don't know the details. They want to control things because they want to start and stop because they don't know the details. Because they want to be able to get information and they don't want to know the details because they want to stay away from it. And that's how they micromanagement. So be careful with this right here, because the opposite is what you'll get in trouble with in micromanagement. If you want to effectively manage, you've got to get into the details. You've got to understand. And again, you've got to be the expert at some point of this work. Not so much of the details of the work, of doing the work, because employees will challenge you. Don't worry about that. Just say, hey, that's not my role. But how to set the expectations is what's important.